TaskUs On Air presents CX+U.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to TaskUs On Air. I'm Brett Ransom. I'm Vice President of Business Development at TaskUs.
I'm Joe Anderson, Director for Consulting and Digital Transformation here at TaskUs.
Today our topic is generative AI and specifically scaling next generation customer experience. And what we're seeing in our industry is a lot of questions and a lot of discussion around what that means for the customer experience, customer support industry.
Yeah, Brett, we really saw this inflection point last December with the public launch of ChatGPT from OpenAI. And though LLMs had been in development for quite some time prior to that, that's what really kicks off the fervor in the industry around generative AI. A lot of companies, their customer care departments, and their outsourcing partners have been experimenting recently with how to apply generative AI to different use cases in the CX space. You know, we're seeing that take place in anywhere from kind of their back office functions to the agent or teammate experience, helping them to perform their job more quickly, more efficiently. And then we're starting to see some places experiment with using generative AI to move toward kind of full self-service models. We continue to see a little reticence in the market to move outside of those human-in-the-loop processes, simply because of the inventiveness that generative AI can have at times.
Yeah, it's interesting, and it's almost hard to keep up with, right? There's so much change and so much more information coming out as the technology is rapidly changing and evolving for the better. It reminds me of, not to age myself, but I don't know, 20 years ago, you know, everything was voice, right? Email was even, believe it or not, still fairly new. And then you started to have chat, which was seen as a threat to humans, you know, and people doing basic customer support, tech support, back office, you name it. And we didn't really see that go away, right? We didn't see the voice component go away. Chat ultimately did increase, and self-service has obviously increased, but you still have a need for people at the end of the day. And just sort of curious, you know, as it relates to AI, right? There's some of this talk about, oh, it can almost eliminate humans or replace human for support. And, you know, curious on your take, because there may be some portions of that, but, you know, curious kind of what your view is overall.
Yeah, Brett, I think you're absolutely right. We won't see that need for humans go away anytime soon. You know, there will continue to be case types and interaction types that are sufficiently complex to require that human touch and human intervention. You know, there might be the opportunity to automate the more routine or simpler type of interactions and support required for certain segments of customers. But, you know, just as there are still people today who like to interact with a teammate or agent on the phone, you will continue to see certain segments of customers that want that human touch.
Right.
You know, kind of building on that, we expect to see generative AI and technology continue to support agents and teammates to serve those customers. And, you know, those customers who want that human touch, that won't go away. But
right.
At the end of the day, it's really about supporting those teammates where they are in their processes to serve customers. Maybe that AI is acting behind the scene.
And I wonder if you could just take through an example of some instances where we're working on improving, you know, the support interaction from the time, you know, I'm talking mainly voice, right? If someone calls up and it's a 20-minute call, how is AI being leveraged to make that more efficient, get information more accurately? How does it all tie together?
Yeah, Brett, a lot of times what's driving the length of those calls is just the troubleshooting and resolution and finding the right information to serve that particular customer. So with generative AI, it can, you know, work in a number of ways. We're seeing use cases from kind of listening to those interactions live to serving up the next best action for that agent to perform and in an intelligent way. We're also seeing use cases where agents have answers at their fingertips. They may be on the phone with a customer, but might be typing in the background, asking questions to an intelligent assistant who can provide them kind of the right next steps to take with a customer to resolve an inquiry.
And I'd imagine, right, a large component, if self-service is a portion of it, people can self-serve to a certain point, maybe halfway. They get to half of the troubleshooting steps, and they've got 2 or 3 things that maybe they're stuck with. That would shrink the handle time or make that interaction with a voice human on the end of the line quicker. Is that fair?
Absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned that. As you leave customers to use those self-service tools, you always want to make sure you have a fail-safe or backup in place. And you want the technology to be able to identify its own limitations. So you don't want your customers to attempt to use self-service tools and then get stuck or frustrated. You have to have the ability to identify where is that technology kind of not meeting the need in a particular interaction, and have a human be able to step in almost instantly to support that customer. And
in our world, right, we're hiring, we've got close to 50,000 employees across the globe that are doing some sort of support for mainly disruptive technology companies who tend to need the support, right? Because they've got new products, new processes, new workflows. That's where we come in to help. And we have to hire people, recruit, or we have to recruit, hire, train, and then retain them, right? Make them efficient at their jobs. How does AI fit into those different stages from the day that we recruit and hire and train? Are we seeing any interesting improvements in where AI will come in to those different stages of an employee life cycle?
Well, I'm glad we're looking at it through the employee life cycle too. And it really starts on the recruiting side. We're able to use artificial intelligence as part of that recruiting process and hiring process. We've traditionally kind of used the standard language test, the different classifications from A1 to C2 and beyond that. But how do we really understand if an agent can apply the soft skills with the correct language and grammar, and has those customer support skills that they can demonstrate during the hiring process that lets us know they're going to be successful in the role? And we're starting to use AI to evaluate candidates, evaluate their writing samples, and also put them through kind of an interactive process as part of hiring, to do some kind of real world simulations of how they would fare in certain circumstances. And that even extends to our training too. While those hiring screens might be a little more generic, when it comes to onboarding and training, we can actually give our teammates a secure environment that overcomes some of the traditional challenges with training simulators. Training simulators, a lot of our clients have concerns about data privacy and security, and then the need to build and maintain a training sandbox on an ongoing basis. Using AI, we can provide a chat training simulator that is tuned based on our clients' particular policies and processes, as well as soft skills. So an agent during the training process can get hands-on experience taking chats, and as they input their responses, get real-time feedback on their application of soft skills, a particular client's policies, and suggestions on how their answers could even improve.
I wanted to ask if we've got clients that are saying, I'm sure, and we're seeing it, right? But many of our big clients, right? It's board level discussions about what are you doing with AI and transform the business. But a lot of some of our clients might be more startups, and they're still trying to build their roadmap. But how do they engage with, what is the right time? When is Gen AI, or when are LLM models? When does it make sense for a business? And are there steps that they have to take before they could be ready to have that discussion about incorporating LLMs or Gen AI into their customer support workflows?
Oh, that's a great question. A lot of our clients are continuing to ask themselves, and their leadership are asking, what are the right use cases? How do we want to deploy this technology? And I think that the simple answer is there's probably no wrong time to do it, but it's important to start small and continue to iterate and build on the complexity of how it's deployed in your environment. Brett, you asked about, hey, what do clients need in place in order to be successful or order to get started? And it really comes down to kind of that content base itself. Whatever generative AI is kind of taking as the inputs, so to speak, has got to be in a semi-solid place. You want to make sure that your business policies and processes are defined, that you've got some training content, that you've got some knowledge content, that you have a subset of past interactions that are, kind of your gold star performances, so that you can use those as the examples for whatever AI solution you have to reference.
Mm-hmm.
And we see a lot of our clients that are startups that the documentation is continuing to evolve, but that's not to say we can't get started there.
Right.
It's pretty easy to spin something up, and you can almost look at it the flip side too. You can use an LLM to help you build that documentation.
As far as risks or dangers, right? Or is there anything, to be aware of as a company goes down this AI journey related to CX?
Yeah, I think a common concern out there is around data privacy.
Mm-hmm.
If I input information into these LLMs, do I continue to retain the data? Do I have ownership of it? What happens to the inputs and outputs, the different prompts that are used? We're seeing a lot of questions around that right now. I think it's like anything where companies are working with software and tool providers. Do your homework. Make sure that the companies you're working with have the right data privacy controls in place, that the way data is stored is something you're going to be comfortable with. Put the right legal agreements in place. One avenue that some companies are going down is they're not working with third-party generative AI providers. They're starting to build their own models, or maybe not build their own models, but adopt their own models. Maybe it is taking some of these open source LLMs and hosting them on their own servers in a secure private cloud. That allows these organizations to, number one, make sure they've got complete control of their data. But number two, it allows them to fine tune their own model so it's unique to their business and the use cases where they're deploying it.
Yeah, I'm curious your perspective on whether you're seeing, the early traction that we have is that AI lend itself to certain industries more than others, right? Whether it's travel and transportation, big tech, software, hardware, consumer electronics, right? Where are we seeing the biggest traction so far? Or is it across the board?
Yeah, Brett, it's those technology companies that are innovators themselves in the space and are going to be the early adopters of the new AI kind of enabled capabilities that are coming out. On the flip side, we're seeing some of the more legacy industries, financial services, banking, healthcare, that are a little more reticent, but that doesn't mean there aren't still players in the space that are using it for some interesting things. I think those companies in those spaces are trying to stay away from use cases where it could potentially have data that's kind of financially sensitive or related to patient health information. Those things are where I think companies are not quite jumping in feet first, but for some obvious concerns.
Right. Is there anything that we can do to address that, or is it going to take time for some of these models to be able to lock down the security aspects of it to make sure there's no risks from a fraud or any sort of risk standpoint?
Yeah, I think it'll continue to evolve in those spaces. Some of those industries move a little slower than others when it comes to adoption. But that's like we talked about with companies who are starting to experiment with their own models, taking some of these open source ones out there, or even building their own and tuning them to be specific for a particular industry, a particular domain of knowledge, and then apply it to those use cases. And that's where we're going to see those privacy concerns starting to be alleviated, because there's no longer a third party involved.
So we can help in a number of areas, right? One, TaskUs and our work processes will continue to evolve pretty quickly. We're going to see, right? Like I said earlier, our entire ecosystem, or the entire employee life cycle and job processes are just going to become much more efficient, will be more accurate. The jobs we do today will become much more easier, so that our folks can do higher levels of care, tech support, what have you. So there's certainly career paths still, for all of our people and really the industry in general. And then, the other benefit is that we're going to see our clients, right, continually, some of it we're not going to touch, right? They're going to solve their own AI roadmap, right? We're not going to go to Apple and tell them we can help solve their AI roadmap, right? But for a lot of startup companies, fair to say that's where we can help, right? Help inform them on, a potential path or a roadmap to begin to leverage AI and its full capabilities.
Absolutely. And, I'm glad you mentioned around startups too. I think one area that is still very nascent, but is the potential new business models that are built on this technology. Just as when the iPhone and App Store launched, we saw a number of new business models that were born out of that, these on-demand food delivery or transportation platforms that previously weren't really possible without that new ecosystem. We're likely to see similar advancements in business models out of the generative AI space and in the technology. Anybody who looks at you now and says, hey, I know exactly what these are going to be, I can see into my crystal ball. Well, they may not have all the answers. We don't quite know how it's going to unfold. But for these companies that start to launch kind of new business models based on this, they should look for an outsourcing provider who's got experience in the space.
Right.
It's important to work with a partner who understands the technology, the risks associated with it, and has the experience and has built the frameworks and policies and processes to address those risks in similar spaces. If some of our clients or people who are listening to this have questions about how we kind of address those trust and safety concerns or address those fraud and risk spaces with our existing clients, I think we can have a deeper conversation around that and how that also applies to companies who are starting to tackle some of those same concerns in the AI space.
Yeah, that's one exciting aspect of our business, and that we work with so many rapidly growing, from the Fortune 100s to early stage tech disruptors. And we learn so much; they stretch us, right? And we learn from that. And then that's a benefit for potentially new clients and all of our clients, that knowledge base that we built, learning from our clients that challenge us each and every day. But Joe, as we look at wrapping up here, a few key takeaways. There's no doubt AI is changing the customer experience landscape. It's going to benefit everyone. Number two, you're still going to need humans and people to be part of that process in the long term. And number three, it's a rapidly evolving business. So clients that are looking for ideas and looking for counsel or guidance to go down that AI journey, you can tap into TaskUs to help them. So with that, I want to thank our listeners for tuning in today. Check out our website at TaskUs.com. You can follow us on all social media channels, from LinkedIn to Twitter to Facebook, Instagram. And until then, this is Brett Ransom and my pal, Joe Anderson. Have a ridiculously good day. Thanks all.